Okay, so let's get
Yeah.
started. So again, my name is Mark Lawrence. I'm the host for today. And today we're going to be interviewing Daniel. He's one of the farmers from Abatime and also an entrepreneur. And Abatime is a forestry community in the Volta region of Ghana. But before we start, I just want to thank the Bankless DAO, Bankless Africa, Ernest, and D-Side, who have been really helpful in promoting what we're trying to do within the DAO and broader. Hey, Daniel, can you just mute your phone or I'm going to mute you. Okay. And then, and I just wanted to thank the Bankless DAO, Bankless Africa, and Ernest and D-Side for giving us this forum to discuss global warming and our concept for digital carbon offsets. So first of all, as you probably know, many scientists believe that global warming is actually caused by greenhouse gas emissions. And each of us have a carbon footprint. You know, we breathe out carbon dioxide, we drive cars, we fly in airplanes. All of this is generating greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And that causes global warming. And there's some systems, tools, that remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Forests and trees are really good at doing this through photosynthesis. And effectively, these forests kind of breathe in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen and they consume the carbon, which is consumed into the trunks and branches of trees and into the biomass, which is basically the soil into the ground. And so that's been done by photosynthesis. Now, there's additional carbon offsets out there. So if you've got your own personal carbon footprint or an organization has a carbon footprint, what they can do is buy carbon offsets from another organization who is removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. That's called carbon sequestration, or avoiding the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Unfortunately, with these programs, mature forests are excluded from being able to sell traditional carbon offsets. And the thinking is that in the USA and in Europe, large mature forests are owned by big organizations. And those big organizations do not need to be incentivized to not participate in deforestation. So because of that, these traditional carbon offsets are really designed to incentivize new carbon sequestration, which excludes mature forests. And that's okay in the USA and Europe, but it's absolutely disastrous for emerging economies. And in this case, the Abatime forest, which is a mature forest in the Volta region of Ghana. And so our goal is to promote equity and inclusion in climate finance. And so we include mature forests, and then we drive down the certification costs to zero. For a traditional carbon offset, if you want to certify and go through one of the standard certification registries, this can easily cost you $750,000, $1 million or more. So even if these mature forests in emerging economies could qualify for traditional carbon offsets, they probably couldn't afford the certification costs. So what I want to do now is compare what we're doing with traditional carbon offsets. And so if you look at a traditional carbon offset, this is almost like a Web 1.0 solution. It's really historical carbon that was extracted from the atmosphere and is now, you know, carbon in trees or in the ground. It's historical. It happened a year ago. And you can go to many websites and buy a traditional carbon offset. And most of the money that you pay actually goes to these intermediaries who are managing these projects and they're certifying these programs. And the farmer probably gets less than 1% of the value when you buy a traditional carbon offset. Now, what some other organizations are doing is they're saying, okay, let's take these traditional carbon offsets and let's tokenize them. And so maybe that's a little bit better, where the information is no longer centralized in the intermediaries, but all the value is still centralized in these intermediaries who are actually tokenizing these traditional carbon offsets. And still the farmer is only going to receive, like, 1% of the value. What we're doing is more like a Web 3.0 solution, where we include traditional historical carbon. In fact, when you buy a NFT from us, that NFT will link to 1 hectare of forestry. And so that NFT conveys the digital and virtual rights to that 1 hectare of forestry, not the physical rights to the trees, not the physical rights to the land. That's owned by the farmer or the landowner. But there's also the rights to the historical carbon. So it's the same rights that you get from a traditional carbon offset. But in addition, we've got the rights to the current carbon sequestration, the future carbon sequestration. We've got enhanced provenance in that you come to our website and you can actually select an option to drill down using satellite technology to see the 1 hectare of land that is actually associated with your NFT. So you get provenance all the way down to a particular hectare of land. With traditional carbon offsets, you don't get that. We also have enhanced rarity. So what does that mean? That means the hectare of land that is associated with your NFT may be close to a waterfall, or it may be close to some caves or a monkey sanctuary or some other attribute that's in the forest. And so those attributes are rare. And so what that means is that your NFT will have physical rarity. Whereas today, when people buy NFTs, they have rarity that is basically in the art. Maybe they've got the art has a person and they've got a green shirt, and only 1% of the different versions of this art have a green shirt. So the green shirt is rare. In this case, the rarity may be your hectare of land, maybe within 0.5 kilometer of a waterfall. And so again, we've got enhanced rarity, and then you can take the rights to this forest and use those rights, the digital and virtual rights, in gaming applications and metaverse applications. Somebody may create a metaverse where the scarce commodity may be oxygen. And if you bring in the rights to a hectare of forestry that is actually removing carbon dioxide and generating oxygen, then maybe that 1 hectare of forestry has value in that particular game. And what we do is we effectively eliminate all of the standard intermediaries. And what that does is it drives down the cost or the value that's extracted by the intermediaries to 35% or 15%, which means we're decentralizing the information, we're decentralizing the value, and we're allowing these farmers to stake 1 hectare of land onto our platform. And in the future, our platform will be a marketplace where individual owners of forestry land will be able to stake their hectare of land into this marketplace for other people to pay or buy rights. And so in this particular solution, the farmer can potentially get 65% to 85% of the value. And so instead of taking questions at this point, what I want to do is just explain that the main beneficiary of this particular project, and I'm actually going to close the presentation at this point and stop sharing. Main beneficiary of this particular project is the Abatime forest. And what I want to do is introduce a special guest today, Daniel, who's actually a member of the Abatime community. So Daniel, I just want to welcome you to Bankless Africa. How are you doing today? Hey, Daniel, you're still on mute. Can you unmute yourself? We cannot hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mark. My name is Daniel Odzagba Kofi. I'm 42. I just turned 42 yesterday. And I'm from Abatime, a community in Abatime traditional area. I'm a farmer and also a government worker. I work with the Ministry of Education. I have my own farm or my own projects, a cashew farm of 10 acres, which I would say I've employed about 6 women who are picking cashew nut for me. And I intend starting processing the cashew nut itself into alcohol coming February. The other aspect is I wanted to start processing the nut itself, but that's capital intensive. So for now, for long term, I'll hold on for now to maybe I'll be able to have enough finance to be able to purchase those machines from India for processing of the cashew nut. On the other side, I'm the chairman of Abatime Multi-Brand Rice Farmers Group in Bajeme, popularly known as Ajagbe Cooperative Group in Bajeme, Abatime. What we try doing now is to promote the brown rice in Abatime area. As we know, the brown rice is locally produced by our forefathers, and then it's very, very nutritious, hygienic, and there's no fertilizer or chemical used in producing this mountain brown rice. We have also a very large forest reserve with a lot of beautiful flowers, beautiful birds, beautiful butterflies, and a whole lot of waterfalls around. The land is so virgin, and the atmosphere is good for, as you said, the project we intended bring it to Abatime zone.
Okay, hey, Daniel, let me interrupt you for a minute there. So I just want to say, I didn't realize it was your birthday, and everyone's sending messages here to say happy birthday. And in
Thank
fact,
you very much.
You just answered my next question, which was, what is your role in Abatime? So you've already answered that question. But what can you tell us about the Abatime community?
Well, Abatime consists of 7 communities. Abatime Amejope, Abatime Bajeme, Abatime Biakpa, Abatime Fume, Abatime Jokwe, Abatime Jogbefeme, and Abatime Vane, which is the paramountcy. Our people are very peaceful, hardworking, and I would say almost 90% of the citizenry are farmers.
Okay, and what can you tell us about the Abatime forest?
Well, as I've already said, Abatime forest is very virgin, ecological. We have mountains, we have waterfalls, we have all kinds of butterflies, birds, and all kinds of species for research work. I'm also a member of one of the NGOs which is trying to preserve the forest, Help Ghana. So I'm also the chairman of that fan club in Abatime. And what we are trying to do, preserve the forest for future use and also for any research work. So Abatime forest is very, very, very green. And there's one aspect of it is, since we are the most, we live in Ghana, but we are the highest human settlement in Ghana. So you can imagine the rainfall pattern is good. Every aspect of our forest, we have trees, we have flowers, we have all kinds of trees that you want to see in the whole world.
Okay, and I can see it brings a smile to your face. So obviously you're very proud of the forest itself. So, but
yes,
what are some of the challenges that are faced by the Abatime forest and the Abatime community?
Well, the problem we face now is one, and the aspect of human resource is unemployment, and then illegal logging of some ancient trees. And we believe that maybe because of unemployment, that's why most of our young men are indulging into this illegal logging, which we are all trying to put a stop to. I believe if we'll be able to invest in our people, educate them, the problem we have of unemployment, if we're able to incorporate them in cooperatives, groups, society groups, and then we educate them, invest into them, those who are willing, we invest into them, and then maybe possibly we'll reduce a lot of unemployment rate in Ghana, in Abatime zone. As I will say I'm doing now, at least I've employed 6 ladies or women with their kids picking cashew nuts for me, and I pay them weekly. This will last for almost 5 months, because we pick cashew for 5 months, and we do this annually. And if I'm able to set up the processing plant for extracting the alcohol from the cashew nuts, cashew fruits, that want to employ some young men who will stop this illegal logging of our trees. So I think the best is to educate them and form groups, forums, and a workshop for them, that we can invest into them more for us to be able to solve this deforestation problem in Abatime zone, Abatime traditional area.
Okay, now I'm seeing messages here. One of the messages says we need to get Daniel a MetaMask wallet for his birthday. I'll explain to you what that means later on. And it looks like you've already touched on my next question, which is what education is required to help community care for the forest itself?
Yeah, I think we have to work with our chiefs in the community, as our paramount chief have started already, calling meeting with the chiefs for them to come and educate our folks. And I think we need to liaise with the district directors or forestry district forestry directors to come. I think with them, there will be a little bit that kind of fear in the people, so they stop illegal logging, because it looked like because there's no job, there are no job, even the elderly in our communities are willing to sell off those trees in the forest. But if we're able to educate them and then find means of employment for the young ones, then I think this problem will be a thing of the past. So I believe it's a matter of working together with stakeholders from the district assembly, the forestry commission, the paramountcy, the divisional chiefs, and then the chiefs, and we, the youths in our communities. When we come together and form a strong force, I believe this illegal logging of trees will stop.
Okay. And what education do you believe is required that can improve the farming practices in the community?
Well, we need a lot of it, because now the world is moving forward, or in the modern age. The Western world is also going ahead of us. And now these days, nobody uses cutlass and hoe going to farming. You gain nothing from that. So I believe if we need education, then we need to mechanize, we need to mechanize our farming system. Add maybe possibly organic fertilizer to whatever we are doing for us to be able to get the needed yield in our farms. And this will be done in forums, in workshops within the community or within the cooperative that we formed in Abatime traditional area.
Okay. And then how else do you believe the community can benefit from any other educational practices?
Well, they can benefit if what we've started we want to do, they've seen the importance of it. At times, you don't benefit immediately when you start something, but then at the end of the day, maybe a generation that will come will know what you have done, and then the benefits that you, that alone is a legacy. So maybe possibly today, most of the people might think that immediately they will not benefit. But then when we started the education, the forum, workshops, and we begin to talk to them and understand what the future holds for the generation who come, I believe it will help a lot, and that will be a benefit for all of us.
Okay, and then how can these new educational practices, and I think you've touched on this a little bit, but how can we actually help to deliver these new educational practices to the community? How can we get the information to the community?
Well, getting the information to the community possibly be through the cooperative groups, youth forums, workshops in the various communities, and possibly some maybe a video show somewhere to the people to see or know what we are all talking about or we are about.
Okay. And then changing the subject a little bit here, are you aware of cryptocurrencies, blockchain, or any of these innovations and how those innovations can benefit the local community?
Well, I have heard of cryptocurrency, but I don't know much details about it. I need to be educated on it.
Okay. All right. So if there was a small amount of funding that was made available, and that small amount of funding was made available to the local community, how do you think that small amount of funding should be spent?
Well, that small amount should be spent in such a way that that fund will not get lost. You need to get dedicated people, youth groups that are active. And then we look at people who have interest in what we want to do. Then we invest that small amount of money into them. Because it's more or less like when we begin with that small money and we want to start workshops and forums and spend the money on workshop and all that kind of thing. At the end of the day, those who are willing to do business or go into farming with that small amount, they will not be able to have access to that money. So I believe we need to form groups and look at the active members, those who are interested, those who have interest, those who are eager, the groups that are very active. Then we can invest that small amount of money in those communities or in those groups. And these, when others see what the groups are doing, they will join. And this will bring a change to the whole community and also to Abatement traditional area.
Okay, and that's kind of covered all of the questions that I have. And so is there anything else that you would like to share? Any other information you'd like to share with our community today?
Well, what I want to share with the audience today is Abatime traditional area is a very peaceful area. We don't have any problem with land issue. Anyone who wants to come and invest, the traditional council will be able to help that person to come and invest in Abatime traditional area. Our people are lovely, they are kind, they are hardworking, and because we are farmers, we know we enjoy farming. So I think, and we have all kind of manner of tourism sites. The second highest mountain in Ghana, Mount Igeni, is in Amijope, Abatime traditional area. We have a lot of waterfalls, beautiful butterflies, birds, and the environment is so good. That's what I can talk about, add to what we've said already.
Okay, so there's lots of comments here, and instead of me reading these comments, I'll just open the floor for people to ask these questions themselves. So Ernest, I'm seeing there's some questions from you. I know D-Side is on the call, and so let me open the floor to questions.
Thank you very much. It's yeah, and happy birthday. Yeah, we're actually not very far apart in age, so It's nice to see a diverse set of generations, actually in a space and working together. Um, I guess some of the questions I had was, what kind of devices and applications are you familiar with using, or, are effective for use in your community? Um, in particular, like, what kind of social media, is popular, if at all, um, in, your area. Um, like we in the DAO in Bankless, we use a lot of Discord for communication and coordinating because we're kind of spread out. But I've also worked with, farming cooperatives or small groups. And so sometimes there is, other tools that farmers are coordinating with, on a, for market reasons, or, just a larger scale than the family. Um, so yeah, and I'd be interested to know just a little bit about that, because I think that's it. If we don't know how to communicate, with folks in Avatime, essentially, then it's difficult to communicate and work on things. So yeah, I just super appreciate knowing that.
Hey, Ernest, let me interrupt for a moment there. So what we're doing right now is we're working to onboard some people from the local community to start using our Discord server. And so Curtis has been working with the Paramount Chief and a couple of other people. So if you go to our Discord server, the Carbon Collectibles Discord server, there's actually a couple of channels there where we're starting a discussion. And that's where we're going to start discussing the different business opportunities that are there, and some of the challenges that the local community is facing, and then working with some people here who perhaps have other access to innovations and different ways of solving those problems. And so we will be using our Discord server to do that. But certainly the team that I have or I'm aware of in Abatime, none of them were using Discord. None of them were familiar with it. And so Daniel, do you use the internet at all in terms of helping you with your farming practices?
Yes, I use internet personally. I use, but not for the cooperative.
Okay, so
I have to do a lot of research. Yeah.
Okay, so are there any other? Do you know if any other farmers are going to any other websites to get educational information about better farming practices or information about caring for the forest or anything else?
For that, no place, because most of our cooperative members don't have these kind of smartphones, and they are not ICT inclined, so none of them uses such a technology for research work.
So Ernest, that's part of the challenge that we have, right? And that's something that I think Bankless Africa can help with, because there's so much information out there that can help. But if people don't have good access to the internet, and then if they do have access to the internet, it's so expensive to use. And then there wasn't, the education in terms of what is there and how to leverage that information, then it becomes very challenging.
Right. And I think, like, yeah, and it's not like the people know their land, they know how to farm and care for it and develop that connection. And, we're just trying to use these tools to facilitate that, right? And not dictate things and not assume values. Like, we just want to facilitate. And so, yeah, I think it's important to understand what the friction points are and what kind of education can be shared. Everything starts with education, I think, and research, and just talking with each other. And so, yeah, it's glad to know more about the Discord, and excited to see that shaping up for sure.
Okay. Did you have another question, Ernest?
No, that was essentially it. Just wanting to know, how to continue in a way that's comfortable, and how to open up these education channels.
Yeah. And again, what we need to remember here is that these challenges are not unique to the Abatime community. There's lots of other communities in Ghana and in other countries in Africa that are facing these same challenges. And so if we can help with these challenges in this pilot community, then we can replicate this in other communities and in other countries in Africa as well. So I know D-Side had a question. So D-Side, do you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Daniel, for taking the time. I appreciate it, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Can you give us you are a rice farmer?
Yes, please. I'm a chairman of one of the groups in Abatime traditional area.
Okay. Do you farm other? Do you have other? Are you farming anything else?
No, the cooperative is purposely for the rice farming, but
Yeah.
the members in the cooperative group members have their own individual farms that they attend to. Just like I have my own plantation that also I attend to, but we have the group is purposely for the mountain brown rice.
Okay.
So Daniel, for your individual farm though, is that cashew or is that brown rice?
It's cashew.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go into cassava. So yeah.
Excellent. Do you can you give us a sense? And I'm trying to envision it. I live in Brooklyn. Okay, I live in a city, so I'm trying to get a sense of what your farm is like. I know it's forest land. Is it on a mountain? Is it flat land? Like, can you give us a sense of what your farm looks like and what the other farms around you are like?
Yeah, because we live in a mountainous area, our farms are either on a mountain or ground in Abatime, because we live in caves and you climb and you descend, you climb and descend. All our farms are in mountainous areas and then in valleys. So my farm, you walk and then you start descending till you get to the end of the farm, you descend. When you are coming back, you have to climb back. So all our farms are there in mountainous areas. So there's no the level ground farm in our traditional area.
So I assume that poses like other challenges, meaning like getting your produce to market or even getting it to processing, right?
Yeah, that's the challenge actually, because even the roads from our community to join the main road is so bad. And at times the cost of transporting the goods from your farm to the roadside, at the end of the day, what you get will be minimal because of the transport issues. So that's one problem we face. Access road is a problem. And then marketing. I have to go to Accra myself to look for markets for my products. And then for the rice that we are producing, because it's limited, the demand is higher than the supply. So that when people do come to our village and buy it themselves, but then you can imagine somebody coming to buy it will buy it at the price he or she wants, because we don't have any fixed price in Abatime zone, Abatime traditional area. So everybody fixes a price, or the buyer comes and determine how much he will buy the produce for you. That's the challenges we face in the marketing aspects.
Mark, we talked about some of the distribution of funds and things like that. Is there a plan for some of the funding to go towards the farming co-op and things like this, like building infrastructure?
Yeah, and so that gets to the social innovation studio. And so the concept there is for the community to come up with a list of challenges and also a list of opportunities. And so obviously Daniel is speaking about the challenges and the opportunities that he has. When we spoke with the Department of Agriculture, he was speaking about some farmers who focusing on mushroom production and snail rearing and beekeeping, saying that these are opportunities that could be that could help local entrepreneurs who are trying to make use of some of the forestry areas. And so with the Social Innovation Studio, the concept is to come up with these challenges, come up with a list of business opportunities, and then analyze them, and then figure out which of these opportunities that the funding should go to, and then come up with a plan to put together a local team. So there'd be like a local entrepreneur, local support, and then any other support that's necessary. You know, we may come up with, like we have for carbon sequestration, we've come up with a fairly unique way to monetize that using NFTs and blockchains and smart contracts, et cetera. And so that needs, and marketing, and that needs a lot of support from our crypto community here to help the local community benefit from that. Now, some of the other challenges or opportunities like beekeeping, maybe the majority of the work and the resources will be done locally, but maybe the fundraising can be done by the crypto community over here. So each of these solutions are going to look different. But yes, that's the purpose of the Social Innovation Studio, to hear these challenges, then help local entrepreneurs come up with local solutions to local problems. And then this community here helps in whatever way. Like Ernest was saying, we're not going to direct the solution and say, look, this is the way to solve the problem, because we don't know. We're not there on the ground with the expertise and the knowledge that the local people have. But what we can do, sometimes we can just come up with creative business models and say, you know, for example, another challenge that we've been looking at for a while is, you know, there's these marketplaces where you've got these female market traders who can make money by going and buying, you know, goods and services, bring them to the market, and then selling them at 2-3 times the price. The problem is they don't have any finance. So to get local financing, they've got to pay these loan sharks who are charging maybe, you know, 5% a month. And so now all of a sudden, all their profits are going to the loan sharks. Whereas in that particular situation, we could have an automated loan facility where we completely eliminate the cost that a normal bank will have. And this source of funding is made available at very low cost to those female market traders. So now they can do exactly what they're doing today, but have more competitive access to financing. And so, you know, this is something that I've been speaking with the local community over there about, and they've actually been looking to some of those local marketplaces out there to figure out whether there's one there that we can pilot that concept with. And so again, with the Social Innovation Studio, it's saying that when we're not necessarily philanthropists, there's other people that are putting a lot of money in terms of philanthropy. What we're trying to do is help local entrepreneurs like Daniel, who are coming up with solutions, and then these solutions are sustainable, but they're also profitable, so that Daniel doesn't keep coming back to us every year asking for more and more money. And then he becomes self-sufficient, he can create jobs, and hopefully that will end up creating economic growth as well. And so it's a long answer to your question, but the answer is yes, that's the purpose of the Social Innovation Studio. Thank you.
Someone posted something in the chat. Tony is a web developer, and he asked if the farms need websites. And that also got me thinking, if how do you share education with like young farmers or new farmers? Is it all just by experience and, you know, mentorship sort of thing, or would it be helpful to have digital assets like training manuals, things like that? And meaning, like, you know, we do a lot of education just digitally by webinar and things like that, and it could be recorded. I'm sure we could be helpful with that sort of thing.
Daniel?
Yeah, I guess that's a question to Daniel. Would
Yeah.
something like that be valuable to you? And do most people have phones and computers? And
Well,
or
no. Most people don't have smartphone. I think if we can do better education, we can do this handouts, booklets or pamphlets, or how do they call it? Yeah. And then possibly an audio or a video that can be shown to the groups or to the communities or on the for the youth, for them to know, for them to be educated on. So I think that's what for phones and computers we don't have. Even in our schools, we don't have computers. So you can imagine the young ones in the town or the adults. It's quite difficult to have computers in our area here. It's very expensive. And as Mr. Mark have said, the cost of buying data is also a problem.
Yep.
One thing that I would add to that though is that we've got a different project, right, that we've been working with Curtis on, and Curtis is on the call as well. And that was a land reclamation project which we did with the World Bank. And in some other areas, a lot of people in Ghana do actually have smartphones and they use mobile money. But you know, they still have to buy these packets of data which costs a lot of money. And so our concept there was actually to develop an app, and we've actually, you know, developed the first version of that app so that the mining community could get access to information about better mining practices through our app. And so exactly what you're saying, we actually worked on that for a different application in Ghana. And so potentially that could be a solution that could be extended to the farming community as well. And then, of course, what I didn't know is what Daniel was saying, what the penetration of smartphones are in the forestry community. But certainly most of the mining people that we were speaking with, they all had smartphones, but not computers.
So this is where this is a just interrupt me if this is too much of a tangent, but one of the, since the data issue seems to be a big friction point, and I'm curious if something like a helium hotspot miner would actually be like a way for people to offer Wi-Fi or local Wi-Fi solutions, and then that's an income opportunity for that local entrepreneur that is able to provide essentially Wi-Fi because they have access to a different solution than using phone data, or they just have a cooperative, a better deal on the amount of phone data because they're like essentially buying in bulk. This is interesting thing to think about for sure, is the data issue and communicating, like whether a distributable file that you could just distribute USB sticks in a community, or versus like trying to live stream an educational webinar on a phone.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Again, that would be a good business opportunity for the Social Innovation Studio. And I think I saw something like this on the Bankers Africa Telegram channel, where somebody was talking, maybe it's in Nigeria, where they were talking about extending communications out to rural areas. And they were thinking about doing something similar to this. But then obviously, then you have challenges with getting licensing from the government, et cetera. And so, we'd need to find an entrepreneur who has the right contacts with the Ministry of Telecommunications and anybody else they'd need to get licensing from.
But the same model, instead of, you're essentially creating an NFT, you could essentially raise like an NFT bond to do that infrastructure project to whatever scale is appropriate and feasible, and you start out small.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what El Salvador is doing. is they created a Bitcoin bond that's backed by Bitcoin, and is also backed by like 50% goes into infrastructure of building, you know, the fiber optic cable networks and whatnot that are needed for, you know, using the internet. To,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity, especially if it can be modular. You know, my background's actually in telecommunications. I worked with phone companies for years. And one of the problems they have is that at least with historical telephony, it costs so much money to put up a network that only really huge organizations can do that. But if you can come up with a very modular solution, like you're saying, where it's one hotspot at a time, then you can have individual entrepreneurs who then invest in these hotspots, and then you can link them like, you know, nodes in a blockchain, and then you get your community communications. And so, yeah, that would be a really interesting opportunity.
Ernest, is Helium a satellite network, or is it's just, or is no, like local nodes or connected nodes?
Well, so I recognize that some folks, this may be a very disorienting discussion and sound like a foreign language, and that's a good question. But I guess I would say that in the blockchain world, when you're providing a little bit of storage on a decentralized network that's connected, you earn tokens. When you are providing network access with a bunch of other nodes and people that are providing internet access, and you do it collectively instead of having just like one board of directors out of Google saying we own all these data servers and we own all the cable. Blockchain gives you tokens, you know, for providing those network services. And so Helium is just one of those types of little devices, which there are many of, that you can add to your home or to your business, you know, and even much larger structures. And you can participate in storage, you can participate in processing, and you earn tokens for doing that. You're incentivized to do it because it removes that intermediary layer that usually disconnects people and creates, you know, certain people that can have control over things. So
one thing, Ernest, so when I go to Ghana, what I get, and Curtis can help me with this, is kind of like what's called a Surfline modem. And so it's just a wireless device that is not limited to your home. So you basically buy this from the local cell phone company, and then you can actually take it with you wherever you go. So I take that device with me, and that gives me wireless access via my laptop. And so it's kind of like a mobile hotspot, but it's operated by the wireless phone companies there, the cell phone companies.
Yep. And ultimately, to the modular question that you brought up, right? Starlink is for better or worse, you know, they're putting satellites all around the planet. They're starting at northern latitudes to cover the most area at a time. So I don't know when Starlink would be available in like equatorial regions, but it's supposed to be available at 45 degrees north latitude, which is in the US, you know, within like a year, maybe year and a half. So that, and they're promising gaming speeds, you know, essentially. And so that could be a very, you know, feasible, you know, thing that develops over the next couple of years that kind of disrupts or gives people access to the extent, you know, that all they got to do is they got to order this, you know, 2-3 foot tall satellite and point it up.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments? I know there's a few more people on the call from Bankless Africa. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
Okay, so yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah,
Mark, thank you so much for this communication. I think that it's useful. I just sent a comment that I know there is a fiber optic cable laid from the regional capital along the eastern border. I would, after the holidays, find out from the National Communications Authority whether it's possible that we can tap onto that one to extend the cable to Abatime area. That's my one point that I want to make. The other issue is about education. Like Daniel said, I was just thinking about maybe one day we would gather the cooperatives together, and then they will also participate in this Zoom meeting in one of the localities so that they can have a feel of it. We can have some workshops, I don't know, video workshops on specific days that will be allocated for the people to participate in the training program using the website. When we're able to get good network link, then we can put them together in a classroom-like situation for them to go through this with a presentation. I think that should be possible for us to do. But I want to thank Daniel for the wonderful thing. Daniel, happy birthday for the wonderful things that he has said. And to everybody who is there, thank you.
And just so that everybody knows, that's the Paramount Chief from Abatime, who we interviewed last week. And he's basically the visionary for all of this in the Abatime community. And so, you know, he's working with the government agencies, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Forestry Commission, working with all these communities and working with all the other chiefs and rolling this concept out all the way down to the, you know, individual farmers. And so obviously he's really committed to this, put a lot of work into this, has really galvanized the community, and everybody in the local community is very excited about this. And so we're now at a turning point where, you know, to this point, obviously we've been working with the local community to get everything in place there. In the US, we've been working with all the technology, getting everything in place for, you know, the website and the Discord server and all the rest of it. Basically, all of the technical components that we need to make this happen is now in place or will be in place in the next couple of weeks. We now have a marketing challenge. And so we're now transitioning this project to a marketing focus. And now it comes down to, can our marketing team help us to sell these NFTs to whoever's willing to buy them? If we can market and sell these NFTs in the right way, then we can direct those funds to the local community to help with all these different issues: forest security, forest management, the social innovation studio, which really excites me, helping entrepreneurs like Daniel. There's many entrepreneurs who have got lots of great ideas. Some of these entrepreneurs are resorting to logging trees illegally because that's the only way to put food on the table. They, to me, are entrepreneurs. And if we give them a better alternative livelihood that is more attractive than illegal logging of trees, then we save the trees. We solve two problems. We're saving the trees, and we're also making that person a more productive member of the community who's hopefully creating companies that are solving problems and also creating jobs and economic growth. And so that's the promise that this has. And I really appreciate everybody for calling in and participating. Now what we need to do is move forward with the next phase of this project, which is marketing and sales. And it's not easy to do. I think everybody knows what we need to do. Everybody knows why we're doing it. Now it comes to execution. And so if anybody has any other contacts that have marketing skills, sales skills, know any organizations who would be interested in providing a grant, or organizations who would be interested in offsetting their own carbon footprint by buying our NFTs and our carbon sequestration, please provide those contacts, those suggestions. We're all ears. And so anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, okay. Hi, Daniel, happy birthday. Mark, what I wanted to just suggest was that regarding, like introducing all this innovative and this, exciting technologies to our local brothers in the Abatime community, I was just thinking, or I just want to suggest that once, our organization is able to lay hands on some funds, maybe either from the US or from any other area where we can get some of these technologies very cheap, like the smartphones and stuff like that, we could maybe start off with maybe 5 or 10 pieces of them and then get to share to some of these local entrepreneurs to make it much more easier to communicate with them. For example, that you guys are in the States, but you still need to get this information to them via this internet connectivity, and also to get them familiar with the crypto technology and stuff like that. I think maybe if we can just make some reservation or some package, just a little bit of that, so that we are able to gradually introduce them to that. I just want to add this to the suggestion that the Paramount Chief made, or say Ajatepo the 7th made. Maybe if we can really put this on our project itinerary, or on the ideas that we have, to see how we can develop our farmers and then get this running already. Thank you very much.
And just so that everybody knows, that's Curtis. And so I actually worked with Curtis on RFP with the World Bank, and we actually won that RFP and completed a feasibility study in terms of land reclamation, and intend to actually bid on the full World Bank project as well. And so again, Curtis, that's the purpose of what we're doing with the Social Innovation Studio and the Discord channel, where we talk about the challenges, we talk about the different ways to address those problems, we come up with a business model, and then we actually come up with a funding plan. And that funding plan will not only be, the funding that's required to solve that particular problem, but it's a total solution. And so if it means that in Daniel's case, we need to get mobile phones out to, 5 or 6 farmers in the field, then all of those costs should be included in that package that's put together of the funding plan. And so that's how all of that will be included. And then what we will do is we're going to look at all these different packages, figure out, what the return might be for each of these opportunities and the costs, figure out how much funding we have, and then decide how to deploy those funds most effectively. But yeah, at this point, we need to try to identify a first pilot project that we can work on, so that as soon as we get to a point where someone makes some funding available, then we're going to have that information ready. Because, we're already speaking to some of these organizations. Immediately, they're going to say, okay, so what project do you have? And at that point, we need to be able to show them at least a mini business plan which explains the problem that we're solving, the costs, and the cost is all of the costs, the revenues, the return on investment, so that we can package that up as a mini business plan and then share that information with those potential investors. And that's something that we can help with.
Yeah, and I would just like to add an interesting thing too, that I think as farmers, we understand how having diversity of incomes is important to a farm, to an agricultural region. And one of the things that I like to tell people to show or to share with people that shows how different blockchain is and crypto is that I earn crypto for walking, driving, using a web browser, using a search engine, gaming, my genomic data. I earn Bitcoin for shopping. I earn crypto when I use social media. I can run my laptop and solve equations for cancer research and earn tokens when I'm not using my laptop and I'm not paying for, my data usage. And I earn crypto for trading, which is, markets, and cooperatives, are in markets, and farmers hedge and, exchange things. And I also, just working in Bankless and contributing to other projects online. And so that diversity of income streams allows me to do the work that I want to do, because I like working with people and I like nourishing the land and communities. And so crypto, just in blockchains and being transparent and sharing information and education, is creating a whole new environment that I'm super excited to be involved with folks in.
And so one final point, we're actually at the top of the hour now, so we need to end this call. But that point that you've made, Ernest, I think what we need to, we should have a call that is basically just dedicated to that, where you talk about these different opportunities, and maybe, some of our partners in the local community can look at those opportunities and figure out, well, I would like to make money in that way. And then maybe it makes sense for them to actually get a smartphone and to subscribe to one of these data packages so that they can make alternative income. Because if you think about it, the money that you're making in the US, that will probably go a much, further in some of these, lower income communities. And so we should probably have a call just focused on that.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. And it's like, it's not a lot of money, but it's just a different way, as somebody who is always trying to diversify, and integrate with things, that it's just a different shift and a different perspective. And it fundamentally comes from removing those intermediaries that is always extracting that value. And there's systemic structures in place that just do it automatically, no matter how good your intentions are, in your community sometimes. So, yep.
All right. So I'd just like to thank everybody for calling in. Sorry for keeping you 4 minutes over. But Daniel, I really appreciate your time, and Paramount Chief and everybody else that has called in. And so next Thursday, because of the holidays, we'll take next Thursday off. But then the following Thursday, we may transition to maybe speaking to more local entrepreneurs, maybe addressing the question that Ernest is talking about, because now all of a sudden, here's a potential way for, some of the local community to make money in a different way. And so, so the next call will be in 2 weeks. Want to wish everybody happy holidays. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for calling in. Okay.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, Daniel.
Happy holidays. Happy birthday, Daniel.
Thank you all.
All right.
Happy birthday, Daniel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.